き笑うその方を伝う涙一粒
Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Spirit Collar was released in Japan on November 20th, 2006, and went international on January 2nd, 2007, or at least it did in North America. What a way to ring in the new year with a fresh new romp through Duel Academy. Spirit Collar was another fresh and fancy DS entry in which you could explore Duel Academy Island and usurp the position of protagonist from Jaden Yuki, which is always a laugh riot. This game actually reviewed slightly more favorably from various outlets, although whether that is because they finally got Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans to do reviews for these or because it just had broader appeal remains opaque to me. Could be both. Could be neither. Does this game earn its generous length through the inclusion of dual spirits and a lengthy retelling of the first few arcs in GX? We'll investigate that today. But first, as always, we must navel gaze at cardboard as I elucidate you on whatever three nightmares lurked in your brand new copy of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Spirit Collar. This game came with a set of 3 promotional cards. Those were Hunter Owl, Masked Chopper, and Brain Crusher. There was also a guidebook released for the game, and it came with Winged Rhinos. Winged Rhinos would become a sort of kitchen table staple because of its effect to evade trap cards by returning them to the hand. Hunter Owl would make its way into some decks, but nothing that ever shook up the scene. The other 2 have never seen any real action ever, as far as I can tell. This game is actually the last in the lineage of Nightmare Troubadour vein design. You bounce around different areas on Duel Academy looking for duelists to duel and discovering various story events. There's a full day cycle and things that only happen at certain times of day, and you just kinda wander through the days until you level up your DP and the game moves to a critical story moment, at which point you get locked into that time of day until the story event completes. Some people took to calling this phenomenon the Endless Night, which sounds much cooler than what it really is, which is the game forcing you to participate in a story event. During this time, you can just sort of duel endlessly without progressing the day forward, so you can really cheese levels for progression's sake. One of these endless nights is actually to investigate a well, which ends up containing your very first dual spirit. Dual spirits are the new mechanic that gives this game its title. Over the course of the game, you may discover dual spirits out in the world, and should you defeat them in trial by battle step, they may elect to join you as one of your possible dual spirit companions. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of dual spirits in general, this was invented for GX and became a central pillar of Jaden's character as his ability to see and commune with the card gifted to him by Yugi, Winged Karibo. Chaz Princeton can also see dual spirits, cursed to be eternal friends with the Ojamas in the anime. In the manga, though, his dual spirit is the Light and Darkness Dragon. So honestly, I usually just tell people that because it's way better. Anyway, your character also discovers they can see dual spirits, and this elates Jaden. Each of the dual spirits awards you the ability to use them as a card, as far as I can tell anyway, and each of them has an ability with some sort of marginal effect on gameplay. For instance, some claim to make your luck better when opening packs, some even just make it possible for you to find other dual spirits. The dual spirits can also be leveled up by summoning them during a duel to a maximum of level 3. What do these levels do? I don't actually know. I could never really tell, even when playing this game back in the day. Does it make the effects better? That seems pretty likely. You also have a character creator, like the World Championship titles, so this game has proven to understand its audience more than almost any other title. Make an OC and have a dual spirit? Just let your character have a crush and most of these kids would have never played another game. The gameplay itself is smooth and speedy. The Nightmare Troubadour way of displaying the game board has proven a remarkable way to show off the game, and it's only gotten better over the course of releases. You can edit multiple decks in case you want to try different strategies, and you also view cards in a big collection like the other DS games. Although the game seems to want you to use the touchscreen for this deck builder, and I could not imagine a more visceral form of hell in my brief shining moment of existence. Luckily, you can use the buttons, like always, and it's a perfectly adequate experience. Although the deck builder does get accessed through your room, and the room is not exactly easy to get around, I love how much detail is in the room though. You've got action figures everywhere and all sorts of strange memorabilia. It's awesome. The card pool extends all the way up to Cyberdark Impact, one of the most notorious sets in Yu-Gi-Oh history, but they're still fun to be had. This I swear. Unfortunately, it's going to take you a little bit to get there. The starting deck in this game has got to be one of the more egregious in recent memory. You don't even start with a couple of board breakers or powerful normal summons like usual. It's just bad. Luckily, money is a little easier to come by, but the packs used, as discussed in another video in this series, make it more difficult to actually find the cards you may be interested in. It is nice the card pool extends as late as it does though, since it allows the anime characters to actually use some of their iconic cards, instead of just random good cards. The difficulty in this game is pretty steep, like it is in some previous GX games, allowing computers access to very simple yet overwhelming OTK and stun strategies. You do have access to a wide variety of cards though, and this allows the style of deck you build to differ greatly from what you might find at your local game store. Even if you have to spend 20 hours digging through renamed packs. For some reason. In terms of story, you walk through the events of the first season of GX up through the Shadow Riders, also covering the beginnings of Zane's plunge into the abyss of Edge after losing one time. After defeating the final Shadow Rider, Kagemaru, you have your graduation duel with Zane, and then experience some events that occur at the beginning of the next arc, but slightly shifted, since obviously introducing Sartorius and the White Dorm would extend this game by an additional 40 hours, and frankly, who needs that? The game's final duel takes place during the school tournament, where you inevitably face Aster Phoenix with his famous Destiny heroes. After doing this, credits roll and the whole game opens up. Being able to see the various story events is still fun, especially when it is deliberately shoving Jaden to the side so you can experience them instead. Just like sacred cards. You can never graduate from the Red Dorm, but you can get the other color outfits, so you can cosplay as someone who gets good grades in school. This game also allowed you to collect certain banned cards because once the story completed, everyone, including you, could play with a single forbidden card in your deck, as a treat. Most of these cards, at least the ones really worth getting, are obtained through story events or defeating primary characters from the anime. Also, after completing the story, you can duel characters that otherwise would not be duelable in a casual capacity, such as Dark Zane, Camula, even Kagemaru, and you can hopefully get the sacred beasts from him for yourself. The game features the return of duel puzzles, which are robust and expansive, if you're into that. The game also had Wi-Fi capabilities, so you could duel over the internet, which was one of the more attractive aspects of these DS-era games, and also what most people remember about them. Most importantly, the game had connectivity with Nightmare Troubadour, so you could actually transfer cards from it to this new title. The overall game presented here is really pretty impressive, especially considering this was coming out on the Nintendo DS. The DS was incredibly popular, and the Venn diagram of people who were into Yu-Gi-Oh! And also owned a DS is probably at least 95% completely overlapping. The only issue is that choosing to play this game was statistically unlikely. I mean, think about it. On your DS, you had access to 2 games that carried the World Championship name. Impressive sounding, right? And the other DS game had Yugi in an action pose. I think Konami was probably fishing pretty exclusively for fans of the anime, primarily when making this game, given its reliance on the story and the duel spirits in particular. This allows the game to stand apart from the more competitively minded titles, but there were so many products available at any given time, I wonder if there was a sense of choice paralysis causing these games to split their sales in the long term, or just parents seeing Yu-Gi-Oh games and their kid asks for one and the parent says, "We have Yu-Gi-Oh at home." And they probably do. Either way, the game is certifiably neat. And if you're going to pour 40 to 60 hours into one of these DS games, I wouldn't begrudge anyone who chooses this one. Spirit Caller is a sort of culmination of game design philosophy, taking the best from the World Championship titles so far, and also Nightmare Troubadour to create a great role-playing experience on the Nintendo DS. Of course, it has some competition lurking elsewhere, on a different handheld system. The inclusion of the Dual Spirits mechanic is exclusive to this title, as they wouldn't really be implemented, or at least anything quite like that after this, and I think that makes Spirit Caller really special. This game is also a capstone on a style of game. Role-playing games in the franchise won't really look like this anymore. So, did you enjoy your time with Spirit Caller? Do you think the Dual Spirits were enough to set it apart from the rest of the pack? We're just about through the GX era, but we still have one final project left. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.